Hi, this is Catherine again, and we're going to be finishing up our unit on physical science today with our final lesson 7 that is entitled Moving Around. And this is another favorite of the kiddos because they get to move around a little bit and they get to move other objects around. Now, what can be a little hard about this lesson is things can go flying and kids can kind of get out of hand. So what I like to do beforehand is kind of really set some expectations on behavior with the different objects and behavior with their bodies. And usually it runs really smoothly because the kids are getting to move around and wiggle a lot. What I like to start with is kind of reviewing all the senses the kids have used in the unit and the past lessons. And what we talk about is our sight, our hearing, our sense of smell, what we've used touch for, and all the other pieces and how we've used them to kind of discover about our world and about different objects. So what we do is we kind of take out, the first part is we talk about how different objects now can move. And what we start with is usually taking out that egg because they're kind of familiar with it from the previous lessons. And I pair students up, and I choose the pairs usually, but of course that's up to you and how that works best for your classroom. I give each pair of students one egg and they sit across from each other. And again, I just prep your kids with a lot of behavioral expectations that the eggs need to stay on the ground and they shouldn't be tossing in between each other. And usually, again, that works really smoothly. So what they're going to do with their partner is they're going to roll it back and forth to each other and kind of discuss the different observations they make. Does it roll in a straight line? Does it curve? Is it easy to roll? Did you have to push it or did you pull it to get it to move between you? So that usually leads to a lot of discussion, and it takes a little bit of time for kids to talk about all the different ways the egg moves. When they're done doing that, I do have the students come back to the whole group from working with their partners, and I have them, each partner pair, share a little bit about how their egg moved. I do like to focus a lot on, when we're having that discussion, on did it roll straight, did it curve, was it able to move fast or slow, and again focusing too on the did you have to push it or did you need to pull it. Now, what I like to do after they've worked with partners is that everybody gets an egg, and I give everyone different challenges and they have to make the egg move in different ways. So usually I have everybody working together on the rug and they put the egg in front of them and I said, now I want to see you roll your egg fast, and they move it a little quicker. So we talk about how they made that move fast. Did they have to push it harder? And then we talk about how can you make it move slow, how can you spin it, or how can you roll it in a circle, and what did they have to do to make that object move differently. Now what we do is one of the kiddos' absolute favorite things. Everybody gets a slinky with their partner pairs, and we use this slinky, and they call them magic springs, to complete the moving around book. And before we start using the slinkies, I like to read the moving around book just so they know the expectations of what they're going to be expected to do later in the book. So if you look at the moving around book, what is on the first page is it says, I push things to make them move. A pull can make things move. What else can you use to move? And sometimes kids talk about cars a little bit about this, and we talk about engines and how those can also make things move. And then I like to read the whole thing to them at this point because I want them to be thinking as we move objects about what they'll need to record in their moving around book. Say what moves in a straight line, what moves in a circle, what moves slowly, what moves fast, what moves back and forth, and what doesn't move. And usually at this point I do give them the spring and I let them kind of manipulate it and move it on their own. I let them kind of roll it off the table and see how that works and moves on its own. And then after they've completed that part of kind of playing with the slinkies, I take them back from them and I have them go back to their desk individually and complete the moving around book. Depending on the kiddos in your class and depending on what part of the year you're in, you might need to review it and read the questions again so they know what they're expected to do on each page. Or perhaps at this point they're ready to go on their own and they can complete it on their own. When they're done doing the books, again, I like to have them come back to the whole group, and we have individual students come up, depending on time, to share their books. And sometimes I have time for the whole class to share, and sometimes it's just one or two kiddos, but it's a nice way to wrap up the unit. And what's really nice about this last lesson is you can kind of incorporate it into moving around the school. How do they get from one place to another? So you can kind of talk about that, about how they move in the classroom versus how they move in the playground. You can talk about swinging or sliding. Are those fast motions or slow motions? And then I always like to use it a little bit in the hallways. We're going to move slowly now. We're going to move a little more quickly. And the kids really like incorporating that and generalizing it into their environment. So it's a nice way to wrap up the unit.